What's up, everybody? Garrett back here. I want to talk to you about me selling my VHS collection and why I regret it. Now, I've been doing more of these physical media story time type shows. People seem to have loved them, so I'm going to continue with it and my history of physical media collecting and, things I've done in the past that I just regret. Now, with things like Blu-ray and 4K and a lot of these movies getting re-released, people often ask me, like, are you going to get rid of your DVDs? Are you going to sell your DVDs? And usually the answer is no. Obviously, I really think about specific titles that I will do as a giveaway, or I will sell, or I'll tote away, or whatever it may be. But to sell my DVD collection, especially the horror stuff, is an absolute no. DVD collecting was like the most enjoyable years of my collecting journey. And I've got so many cool stuff, especially horror stuff that I had accrued over the years, and they still mean a lot to me. I have so many here still displayed up. A lot of cool additions in there, movies that still haven't got upgrades, so DVDs really do mean a lot to me. But let's bring it even further back to VHS. Now, one of the main reasons that I would never probably part ways with my DVDs is because of what happened to my VHS collection. Now, we are bringing it back to about 2007, maybe 2008. It was around that time. I'm pretty sure it was probably about 2008. I had really got heavily into DVD collecting around that time, and I was collecting pretty hard. Now, I did have a real cool horror movie VHS collection, stuff I had accrued over the years, stuff that I started collecting. At this time, a lot of these major chains, the Blockbusters, the Hollywood Videos, even these mom and pop shops, we had a place here called Pizza Pie Movie Guy, which is a real cool, to me, gimmick. It's like a pizza place, but it's a video store. So you would go in, there would be a full video store there, mom and pop shop, but they also made pizzas there, and you could buy a whole, pizza, multiple pizzas, you could get fries, you could get drink, and while they were making it, you kind of walked the store and rented these movies. And this was a transition period around this time for a lot of these stores where when you walked in, they were basically giving away their old VHS stock. And that's really where I started to build a super, super strong VHS collection. I had VHS through my childhood. Nothing too crazy. I bought VHS here and there through my teens for some movies that I either discovered for the first time or were absolute favorites of mine. But it was mostly, I'm going to say, a lot of these stores and video stores that were selling all their VHSs when I really started to build my collection. So much so that I was simultaneously collecting VHS and collecting DVDs and going to yard sales. People were giving away a lot of these VHS. My uncle and I would scour yard sales to try to get DVDs and VHS tapes for nothing, especially the VHS. We would get boatloads of horror VHS tapes for next to nothing. And he even gave me some of his as he started to upgrade to DVD. And that's kind of what happened. I was still living at home around that time, so my room had become a complete movie-ridden place. I mean, I had shelves that were completely full. I had movies all over the floor stacked up. It was just becoming a mess in that room. It was not even functional anymore. There was just movies everywhere. And I remember having to make a decision, like, I can't live this way. I'm not moving out right now. I was back and forth to college. I commuted to college. And I just knew something had to change, I needed to clean this place up, make it look more presentable. And I remember looking at my VHS shelf, and I was like, man, if I could just get a lot of these movies off the floor and into these shelves, it would really make such a difference here. So I said, you know what? I'm going to start getting rid of anything on VHS that I had acquired on DVD. Now, with that being said, I didn't really think about the editions or, the movies themselves. There was some I kept, which I'll get into very shortly. But most of them, probably 80 to 90%, I ended up getting rid of. And I can remember at the time, like, you couldn't get anything for these. Like I said, video stores and places like that were giving these away for next to nothing, like maybe $1 a tape or something like that. So I knew I couldn't get much for these things. I needed the space. So I started just putting all these VHS movies into a trash bag. I think it was 2 or 3 trash bags worth, and it was probably about 200 tapes. And I remember finding a guy on Craigslist at the time to meet me in a parking lot in the middle of the night. And I opened my trunk and just started putting these VHS in garbage bags in his car. And I think he paid me $80 for them. And at the time I was like, cool, $80. I'm going to reinvest and get more movies. And I have this shelf cleared in my room now. And I'm going to fill it with all these DVDs, which I did. But a few years later, and people say now, like, oh my God, there's a resurgence VHS. Sure, there is, but there's been a resurgence on VHS going back to maybe like 2010, because I can remember a lot of documentaries are coming out about VHS collecting, like Adjust Your Tracking and stuff like that. So there was starting to become a resurgence in VHS collecting around 2010-ish. And I felt like I had just parted ways with my stuff a couple of years earlier, so I was really kind of bummed out. And I was really starting to get a lot of regret at that time, because I had so many cool tapes that I had let go. Things like Black Roses, which was a real cool tape. I had a Frankenhooker tape, the one with the button. Want a date? The button didn't work anymore, but it was the one with the button. And that's probably like my holy grail tape that I want to acquire at this point. But to find one in good condition that still works, you're paying a lot of money, and they're just not around. I mean, even after I got rid of my stuff, I can remember being on eBay in like the 2010, 11, 12 era, really starting to try to find that on eBay. And I almost got it a couple times, but again, you never found one that was in the condition that you wanted. But man, it's just wild to me on the resurgence of VHS now, especially with things like Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. People out there just love seeing a lot of this old school stuff like VHS tapes that just brings so much nostalgia back to them. And what I like about VHS is not only the nostalgia aspect of it, but the display aspects of it as well. I mean, they look so cool on a shelf. They can easily stand, they can go sideways, they can go front, and I mean, it just looks like a display piece. And not only that, the artwork was really, really cool. And, you know, people are really big on going back and getting CRTs and stuff like that, which I am on the hunt for one of the mini CRTs with the VCR in there, all white. I really want one for this room. You know, that's the same thing. It's hard to find them that work and that are in good condition and for a good price. I mean, it's very hard to do that. I do have plenty of VCRs here, but I'm running it off of a freaking 70-inch TV, so it's just not the same feel. And I could get it in here and I could have it playing probably right where that pumpkin is right there in the back. I think it would just really bring to this room. And, you know, when I'm in here working, I can put it on and watch some stuff. I think it would just be really cool. But that is the story. In 2008, that I sold pretty much my entire VHS collection for $80. And man, it is one of those things I've regretted ever since, especially being a collector, especially having my own place now. I'm like, oh my God, I would give anything to have that collection back. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I wouldn't part ways with all these cool horror DVDs, because it's fun to go back in time and talk about them on this platform here, because not everybody was collecting around that time. So I have some stuff here that people are seeing for the first time. And I've said this before. I feel like DVDs are starting to get a resurgence again for those very reasons. Now, do I think it's going to have the same resurgence as VHS did? No. But I do think I see more collectors kind of remembering those times in physical media history. And there's some cool editions out there that just never got the treatment that it got again. So that is one of the reasons that I'm not going to part ways with any of my other collection in bulk like that, because I know it's probably going to come back to haunt me like this has here. So, again, there's stuff here that I'm willing to give away for giveaways. There's stuff here I'm looking to sell. but I'm being very picky and choosy on what it is when it comes to things like DVDs and Blu-rays that I've upgraded now. But man, before we wrap this up and talk more about the regret that I have about my VHS collection that I once had, that I absolutely loved, I've started to go back and try to acquire not only some stuff that I have that bring back a lot of memories for me, but also stuff that I had never had before. Like I said, we're going back like 20 years almost now, where I feel like, I could have got these at a cheaper price, but at the same time, I have more access to get these now with things like eBay and Instagram and all this other stuff. So again, I don't want to pay a lot for these things, but I do still love the VHS format, especially when it comes to horror movies, especially for the reasons that I talked about. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to kind of showcase some of the ones that I've kept and I didn't purge in 2008 and why, and then some of the cool ones that I've acquired since then. I can just run through these real quick. Like, obviously, some of my childhood favorites I did not part ways with, which I'll get into, but looking at the horror stuff I have near now, I did not get rid of my Friday the 13th series because it is my favorite horror franchise of all time, and it still is. And again, you're going to be like, where's part 5 or whatever? It's in the other room. But again, I have all the old school VHS for Friday the 13th. And if you want to see them in more detail and whatnot, I did do a show with Christian on my channel on Friday the 13th talking about the Friday the 13th history and physical media. You can go check that out if you want to see these in a little bit more detail. Same thing with Elm Street. Man, like these tapes, they just meant so much to me. I mean, look at this artwork. Unbelievable. These are just so cool, and they're just like glorified display pieces, these things are, and the artwork is incredible. So to have these as well with the stickers on them, all in very good condition. These are from my original collection that I never parted ways with. And looking here, I just grabbed a couple. This one I had kept from my original collection because at the time you couldn't get this movie any other way, and you still can only really get this movie on DVD and like a double pack or something. I do have it, but this is a cool movie from the 90s called The Clown at Midnight. I think it was late 90s, I believe, that this came out, 98. Clown at Midnight, kind of like a take on Scream, but it involves a clown, and they're working at this theater. Here's another one, Playroom. This is another movie that I don't think has gotten another release at all. So another one, this Texas Chainsaw Massacre with that Video Treasures logo. This is the one that my uncle had given me as a kid. Obviously the Child's Play. I have all of the 1, 2, and 3, but they're back there on those shelves. But just an example. Another one, Summer Camp Nightmare. This never had another release, so of course I kept it because I didn't have it any other way. Night Visitor, same thing. This Last House on the Left means a lot to me. This was the one my uncle given me as a kid. Monkey Shines holds a special place in my heart. This VHS tape, this cover alone, was the one that used to scream at me at the video store growing up. So of course I wanted to keep that in the collection. And then going back to the childhood favorites, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, every kid had this in the 90s. Turtles 2, same thing with Batman Returns. Like, these were ones I was not going to part ways with. Paperboy, another horror movie that does not have any other release. That's why those are still here. And it's funny because as I flip this around, Video Today, it says here, Attleboro, Massachusetts. That's where I bought this thing. Which maybe that was Pizza Pie Movie Guy. Maybe that was also used to called Video Today because that was in Attleboro. So maybe that's where I got that one when they were going out of business. But again, I still have a lot of my VHS that I never parted ways with. This one here, which again, this was my Evil Dead from my collection with this artwork that is just absolutely incredible. Now, guys, I have a story about this one. So if you're watching this, keep your eye on the channel, subscribe to the channel, because I'm going to be doing a video on this release and what makes this so important to my collection and how this was actually accidentally the first time I'd ever seen Evil Dead. So I do have a real cool memory and story regarding this exact tape here from my original collection. So from there, real quick, I've acquired, and I'm going to give a shout out here too for this one. I've acquired some as I'm starting to build the collection back up. I'm going to give a shout out to Cinestalker Danny. I had just purchased this from him. He was getting rid of it, and when I saw that, I was like, oh my God. That was the Dawn of the Dead VHS tape that I had growing up. This was one that my uncle had given me, and it was part of the sale in 2008. And when I saw that he had this version, I was like, shit, I've got Dawn of the Dead from Anchor Bay, but I don't have this one anymore. And this cover alone just brings back so much nostalgia for me. And it was this one. Did anybody have this HBO Dawn of the Dead with this weird, wild cover? This was the Dawn of the Dead that I saw for the first time growing up. This was the tape. So when he had this version, I was like, man, I need this back. This was one that made it to the Purge in 2008. And I also snagged this one, which I actually never owned on VHS. I only saw this on Blu-ray when Scream Factory released it, and I fell in love with it. I did a whole video talking about this movie. Scream for Help. I've been really putting this over as of late, probably over the last year or so. I really love this. And when I saw that he was getting rid of this on VHS, I'm like, dude, I want that. Like, I love that movie, and I never had this VHS tape. So, as you can see, I am trying to acquire some gems as well to add back into the collection because I just really do love the format. I always did. But being a young kid I think at the time I was in college, really collecting, high school, really collecting. And then when DVD happened, I had gotten out of college. I was really heavily into DVD through college and afterwards. And I just needed to make space. And at that time, $80 to a college kid in 2008 seemed like good money at the time that just got reinvested into more movies. But I wanted to just come on here because I know you guys are really liking these physical media stories. And I had a cool one about my VHS collection. It still haunts me, so it's not that cool. But I think it would be one that you guys might like to hear because I think there's other people out there that probably are in a similar situation as me, because if you're around my age, you know that VHS was dead in the water for years. And as much as you loved the collection, when you started getting into the DVD game, VHS tapes, they didn't really mean much to you anymore. The same with vinyls. They didn't mean a lot to you when CDs came out, and now they're back and people wish they had their vinyl collection back. So let me know if this resonates with you, if this brings back the feels for you. Did you have a collection, either a VHS collection? Maybe you've already gotten rid of your DVD collection and you're like, I'll never miss that. But who the heck knows what's going to happen in 5 years when physical media is not how it is today. People might look back and be like, man, I miss, this edition of this movie and these DVDs, and they meant a lot to me. Or, man, I need to get back into VHS because this is just an old school format that's just slowly becoming harder and harder to find these old tapes. And, man, I'm having a ball going back and trying to acquire some of these VHS that I've always wanted, some of these horror DVD editions that I just couldn't afford or couldn't find back in the day. I'm really trying to get those again into my collection in more of like a physical media historian, I guess, when it comes to horror. So if you guys want to check out some of those DVD physical media history videos and these holy grails that I'm still acquiring, definitely go check those out. I've done a bunch of videos on a couple good ones. I've always got some stuff I've got my eye on, so as soon as I get them in the collection, I'll definitely do a video on it and what makes them important to me in the history of horror on physical media. But guys, talk to me in the comments below. Tell me if you feel the same way I did when you sold something, a collection. It could have been a collection of toys or action figures or VHS tapes or vinyls or something you look back and say, damn it, I should have never did that. Guys, I hope you enjoy this. Thank you again for checking this out. Until next time, this is Garrett at Born to be Rad, and like always, stay